I freeze in the middle of the grand ballroom as the crystal champagne flute nearly slips from my trembling fingers. All around me, conversations at my sister Vivian's lavish wedding reception grind to a halt as the CEO of Meridian Technologies, the most influential tech company in the Pacific Northwest, calls out my name and strides toward me with recognition lighting up his face. The same CEO my sister has been desperately trying to impress all evening now ignores her completely, leaving her mid-sentence to reach for my hand. The same sister who spent the past hour telling her in-laws that I was the family charity case and probably needed to borrow money just to buy that dress. Time slows as Jason Chen, billionaire tech innovator and my sister's new father-in-law's most coveted business connection, exclaims loud enough for everyone to hear, "Olivia Reed? My God, it really is you. Everyone, this woman saved my company. $3 million last quarter with that security protocol overhaul." The weight of 100 stunned gazes presses against my skin. Vivian's perfectly made-up face crumples in confusion, then horror as she realizes what's happening. Her new husband stands frozen beside her, champagne suspended halfway to his lips. My parents exchange bewildered glances across the room, clearly trying to process how their struggling daughter could possibly know the keynote speaker from their morning ceremony. The crystal chandelier light catches on my sleek emerald dress, the one I splurged on from my executive bonus last month, casting jade-colored patterns across my hands. I take a steadying breath and prepare to navigate the collision of my two carefully separated worlds. "Mr. Chen," I say, my voice steadier than I feel. "What a surprise to see you here." 3 hours earlier, I'd stood in front of the full-length mirror in my hotel room, mentally rehearsing platitudes to endure the inevitable barrage of backhanded comments from my sister and subtle disappointment from my parents. The invitation to Vivian's wedding had arrived 6 months ago. An olive branch after 2 years of minimal contact. The handwritten note at the bottom had seemed genuine. "I'd really like you to be there, Liv. It's time to put the past behind us." I'd believed her, or at least I'd wanted to. Despite our complicated history, she was still my little sister. And so I'd requested the weekend off from my senior security team lead position, a detail I'd deliberately kept from my family, and flown across the country from Seattle to Connecticut, hoping this might be the beginning of healing our fractured relationship. The emerald dress was a last-minute decision. Usually, I downplayed my success around my family, wearing simple clothes that wouldn't trigger Vivian's competitive nature or my parents' uncomfortable questions about my career in computer stuff. But today, something in me rebelled against that pattern. Perhaps it was the promotion I'd received last month, or maybe just exhaustion from maintaining two separate identities for so long. "You look different," my mother had said when I arrived. At the pre-wedding breakfast that morning, her tone suggesting she couldn't decide if this was an improvement. Vivian had assessed me with narrowed eyes. "That's quite a fancy dress for someone who works in IT support." I'd let the mischaracterization slide, as I always did. My family still believed I answered help desk calls because that's what I'd been doing when I left home 6 years ago. I'd never corrected them when I moved into cybersecurity, then advanced into developing proprietary security protocols that had caught the attention of major tech companies. It had seemed easier that way, avoiding Vivian's jealousy and my parents' confusion about a career they didn't understand. "So you're still with that little computer company?" my father had asked over mimosas. "Yes, still at Meridian," I'd replied, not mentioning my team of 15 or the patent pending for the security algorithm I'd developed last year. Now, as Jason Chen beams at me across Vivian's wedding reception, that double life implodes in spectacular fashion. "Olivia led the team that revolutionized our entire approach to network security," he tells the stunned circle that has formed around us. "Absolutely brilliant work. I told your director we need to fast-track your promotion to Chief Information Security Officer." A champagne flute slips from someone's hand nearby, shattering against the marble floor. Without looking, I know it's Vivian's. She'd always had a flair for dramatic timing. The whispers start immediately, rippling through the reception hall like wind through tall grass. I can practically hear the mental calculations happening around me as relatives and friends reassess everything they thought they knew about quiet, underachieving Olivia Reed. "There must be some mistake," Vivian says, materializing at Jason's side, her wedding gown rustling with the speed of her approach. "My sister works in basic IT, help desk support." Her laugh comes out brittle. She helps people reset their passwords when they forget them. Something in me shifts, a tectonic plate of patience finally giving way after years of pressure. 6 years of diminishment. 6 years of allowing her to paint me as less than I am to make herself feel more secure. 6 years of peace purchased at the cost of my truth. That was my first position at Meridian. "Yes," I say, my voice surprisingly calm. 6 years ago? Jason Chen looks confused, glancing between us. "Olivia heads one of our most critical security teams. Her protocols are being implemented across all our systems globally next quarter." He turns to me with a frown. "Did your family not know about the Anderson Award last month? I thought you'd have mentioned it. The whole industry was talking about it." The Anderson Award, the tech security sector's highest recognition for innovation. I'd flown to San Francisco to accept it 4 weeks earlier, telling my family I was going to a work conference. The award now sits on my home office shelf, next to the photo of my team celebrating our success with sparkling cider and grocery store cupcakes. My parents have gravitated toward our circle now, my father's eyebrows, nearly meeting his receding hairline. "Award?" my mother asks faintly. "It's not important right now," I say quickly. "This is Vivian's day. We should—" "Not important?" Jason laughs incredulously. "Olivia, you beat out MIT's top security minds for that recognition. Most people build entire careers hoping for an Anderson." Vivian's new husband, Eric, joins our growing circle, his expression a mixture of confusion and intrigue. As Vivian's oldest friend from college and now her brand new spouse, Eric had heard all the family mythology about me. The underachiever, the one who hadn't found her path yet. I can see him recalibrating in real time. "I knew you worked in tech," he says slowly. "But Viv always made it sound like you were struggling." "Did she?" Jason turns to my sister, whose perfect makeup can't quite hide the flush creeping up her neck. "I must have misunderstood," Vivian says stiffly. "Liv never talks about her work. I assumed—" "You assumed I was failing because I chose not to compete with you." I finish for her, the words escaping before I can filter them. The tension in our little circle thickens. Around us, the wedding reception continues, but at a subdued pace, everyone clearly trying to eavesdrop while pretending not to. Wedding photographers circle like sharks sensing blood in the water, their cameras deliberately pointed elsewhere while capturing the unfolding drama. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," my father interjects, slipping into his familiar peacekeeper role. "We're just surprised, that's all. Olivia's always been so private about her work." Private is his diplomatic word for what the family had long interpreted as embarrassment over lack of success. The narrative had been established the moment I left the pre-law track at Dartmouth to pursue computer science at a state school against their wishes. In my family's eyes, I'd chosen a lesser path, and any evidence to the contrary had been systematically filtered through that established belief. "Actually," Jason says cheerfully, oblivious to the emotional currents swirling around him, "Olivia's team is why I accepted the invitation today. When Eric's father mentioned his son was marrying a Reed, I asked if there might be a relation to Olivia Reed. I was hoping to meet the family of such an exceptional team member." The irony hits me like a physical blow. Jason Chen, the connection Vivian and her in-laws had been desperate to impress, had attended their wedding because of me, the family member they'd been keeping at arm's length. "You came to my wedding? Because of my sister?" Vivian asks, her voice tight. "Partly," Jason admits. Your father-in-law and I have been discussing potential collaborations for years, but when he mentioned the Reed connection, it certainly sealed the deal. Any family that produced a mind like Olivia's was one I wanted to know better. The compliment washes over me, at odds with the familiar diminishment I've grown accustomed to in family gatherings. For a moment, I'm transported back to last Thanksgiving, when Vivian had introduced me to her future in-laws as her late-blooming sister, who was still figuring things out career-wise. "Livy helps people with computer problems," she'd explained, patting my arm with benevolent condescension. "Not everyone can be ambitious, and that's perfectly fine." I'd said nothing, cutting my turkey and changing the subject. What would have been the point? In the ecosystem of our family, Vivian was the successful one, the surgical resident engaged to a finance executive with the right connections. I was the cautionary tale, the one who'd taken the road less traveled and, in their narrative, found it led nowhere. Except it had led somewhere extraordinary, and now those worlds were colliding in the middle of my sister's wedding reception. "I should check on the catering situation," Vivian says abruptly, extracting herself from the conversation with practiced social grace. "Please excuse me." She disappears into the crowd, the white train of her gown swishing aggressively behind her. Eric hesitates, clearly torn between following his new wife and learning more about his new sister-in-law's unexpected prominence. "I should probably—" He gestures vaguely in Vivian's direction. "Of course," I say, giving him an understanding smile. "Go." As Eric follows Vivian's retreat, Jason turns to me with genuine confusion. "Did I say something wrong? I didn't mean to create awkwardness." "It's complicated," I reply. "Family dynamics." "Ah." He nods sagely. "Say no more." Then, lowering his voice, "I still need to speak with you about the Singapore expansion. Could we set up a meeting for next week? The board was extremely impressed with your presentation last quarter." "Of course," I say, acutely aware of my parents hovering nearby, absorbing every word. "Monday would work well." "Excellent." He squeezes my shoulder. "I should make my rounds. Too many investors to greet, too little time. But truly wonderful to see you here, Olivia, and to meet your family at last." As Jason moves away to mingle with other guests, my parents immediately step closer, their expressions a mixture of confusion and something that looks suspiciously like the dawning realization that they've misunderstood something fundamental about their older daughter's life. "Olivia," my mother begins carefully, "I think you may have been keeping some things from us." The understatement is so enormous that a bubble of inappropriate laughter rises in my throat. I swallow it down. "Yes," I say simply. "I have. But why?" My father asks, genuinely perplexed. "If you've been doing so well, why would you let us think otherwise?" The question hangs between us, weighted with years of assumptions and subtle put-downs. Before I can formulate a response, my phone vibrates. In my clutch. A quick glance shows a message from my second-in-command, Raj. "Singapore team reporting anomalies in the test environment. Need your input ASAP." "Excuse me," I say. "I need to take this." I move toward the terrace doors, seeking somewhere quiet, to make a call that could impact Meridian's entire global security infrastructure. As I walk away, I catch fragments of whispered conversations. Always thought she was underemployed. Vivian never mentioned her sister was some kind of big shot. Must be making an absolute fortune if she's at Chen's level. The cool evening air hits my face as I step onto the deserted terrace. Behind me, the reception continues, the orchestra striking up a waltz as guests return to celebrating Vivian's perfect day, now with an unexpected subplot to dissect. I dial. Raj's number, one eye on the glass doors leading back to the reception. Through them, I can see Vivian emerging from wherever she'd retreated to, her expression composed once more as she accepts congratulations and poses for photos. Only someone who knows her as well as I do would recognize the tension in her shoulders, the slight strain around her smile. "Olivia, thanks for calling back so quickly," Raj says when he answers. "We've got some unusual activity patterns in the Singapore implementation. Nothing critical yet, but there are anomalies in the encryption handshake that remind me of what we saw during the Robinson test last year." As Raj explains the technical details, part of my mind remains in the ballroom, processing what just happened. For 6 years, I've maintained the fiction that my family created about me, that I was struggling, underemployed, perhaps even a bit adrift. I'd never directly lied, but I'd allowed their assumptions to stand unchallenged. Why? The question my father asked echoes in my mind. Was it to keep peace? To avoid Vivian's competitive nature turning my success into another battlefield between us? Was it because proving them wrong seemed less important than simply building the life I wanted away from their expectations and judgments? Or was it something deeper, some lingering doubt that perhaps they were right about me, and my success was somehow temporary, a fluke that would evaporate if acknowledged too boldly? What do you think, Olivia? Should we implement the fallback protocol or wait for more data points? Raj's question pulls me back to the present crisis. Initiate monitoring protocol 5, but hold off on the fallback implementation, I decide. I want hourly reports on any pattern changes. If it escalates to level 3, call me immediately, regardless of the time. Got it. Sorry to interrupt. Your weekend. It's fine, I say, watching through the glass as Jason Chen engages my parents in animated conversation. Things here just got a lot more complicated anyway. As I end the call, the terrace door opens behind me. I don't need to turn to know who it is. The subtle scent of Vivian's signature perfume reaches me before she speaks. "So," my sister says, her voice carefully controlled as she steps up beside me at the stone balustrade. "Chief Information Security, Officer of Meridian Technologies. That's quite a secret to keep from your family." I turn to face her, taking in the perfect white gown, the meticulous makeup, the expression that's trying for casual curiosity but can't quite hide the hurt and confusion underneath. "I'm not CISO yet," I reply. That was just Jason being enthusiastic about the possibility. "But you will be." It's not a question. "Probably, yes." Vivian's laugh lacks humor. "My sister, the secret tech executive. All this time, when I've been—" She trails off, shaking her head. "When you've been what, Viv?" I ask quietly. She meets my eyes directly for what feels like the first time in years. "When I've been telling everyone who would listen that my brilliant sister was wasting her potential." The silence stretches between us, heavy with 6 years of misunderstandings and carefully maintained fictions. Music from the reception drifts through the terrace doors, the orchestra playing a romantic waltz for guests who are now undoubtedly dissecting the unexpected revelation about the bride's supposedly struggling sister. "I never actually said I was wasting my potential," I finally point out. "You all decided that on your own." Vivian's perfectly manicured fingers tighten around her champagne flute. "Because you never corrected us. You sat there at every family dinner while Dad talked about finding you connections for real jobs. You listened to Mom suggest community college courses like you weren't already. What exactly are you at Meridian?" "Senior Director of Security Systems Innovation," I say, the title I've held for the past 18 months rolling off my tongue with practiced ease. I lead the team that develops and implements security protocols for Meridian's global operations. Yuao stares at me like I've suddenly started speaking a foreign language. "And you never thought to mention this? Not once in 6 years?" "Would it have mattered?" I ask, genuinely curious. "Or would you have found a way to minimize it like you did? With everything else I accomplished that didn't fit your narrative?" The accusation hangs between us. Behind Vivian, through the glass doors, I can see her new husband searching the reception, probably looking for his missing bride. Further back, Jason Chen appears to be deep in conversation with my visibly stunned parents. "That's not fair," Vivian says, but the protest sounds hollow even to her own ears. She sighs, setting her champagne down on the stone balustrade. Maybe it's a little fair. This concession, small as it is, catches me off guard. Vivian has never been one to admit fault easily. When you left Dartmouth, she continues, not quite meeting my eyes, everyone kept asking me what had happened. To you, my brilliant older sister who had always been the family star, suddenly dropping out of the Ivy League to pursue some computer thing at a state school. She shakes her head. Do you have any idea how that felt? To have to explain your choices to people who'd spent years telling me how I should be more like you? The revelation stuns me. In my memory, Vivian had always been the golden child, the one with the perfect grades, the medical school acceptance, the ideal fiancé from the right family. I'd been the disappointment, the one who'd abandoned the family's legal legacy to chase digital dreams they couldn't understand. I thought you were relieved, I say slowly. When I left the pre-law track, you became the successful daughter, the one carrying on the family tradition. Vivian lets out a short, humorless laugh. Is that what you thought? God, Liv, I spent my entire childhood competing with your perfect grades and early acceptance letters. When you left Dartmouth, it wasn't relief I felt. It was terror. Terror? I repeat, confused. Yes, terror, she confirms, finally looking me in the eye. Because suddenly the script was flipped. You were doing something different, something daring. For the first time, you weren't following the path laid out for us. What if you succeeded? What if you proved there was another way to be brilliant besides the one path our parents had planned? Where would that leave me and all my safe, expected choices? The weight of her confession settles over me. All these years, I'd interpreted her dismissal of my career as superiority, when perhaps it had been insecurity all along. So you needed me to fail, I say quietly, the realization dawning. You needed my choice to be the wrong one to validate your own. She flinches but doesn't deny it. I didn't consciously think of it that way, but... She trails off, then straightens. Her shoulders, the picture-perfect bride once more. It was easier when I could tell myself you were struggling. Easier than admitting you might have been brave enough to forge your own path while I just did what was expected. Before I can respond, the terrace door opens again. Eric steps out, his expression a mixture of concern and curiosity. Viv, they're asking for us inside. The cake cutting is in 15 minutes. His eyes flick between us, clearly sensing the tension. Everything okay out here? Just catching up with my sister, Vivian says, smoothly transitioning into her public persona. Did you know she's next in line for a C-suite position at Meridian Technologies? The deliberately casual way she drops this information, like it's something she's always known and been proud of, catches me off guard. That's incredible, Eric says, sounding genuinely impressed. Why didn't you ever tell us, Olivia? Before I can formulate a response, Vivian links her arm through his. Because my sister has always been modest to a fault. It's one of her most annoying qualities. She delivers this with a tight smile. We should get back inside. Wouldn't want to keep everyone waiting. As they turn to leave, Vivian pauses at the door. This conversation isn't over, Liv. Then they're gone, swallowed by the reception's warm glow and orchestral soundtrack, leaving me alone on the terrace with the night air and uncomfortable revelations. My phone buzzes again. Another text from Raj. Singapore issue escalating. System. Rejecting verification protocols in Southeast Asia server cluster. Video call in 10? I check my watch and sigh. Family drama or not, the security of Meridian's global network remains my responsibility. I text back a quick confirmation and scan the terrace for a quiet corner to take the call. Finding a secluded section partially screened by ornamental hedges, I pull out my tablet from my clutch, a custom-designed, ultra-thin device our engineering team developed specifically for our security division. As I wait for the secure connection to establish, My mind replays the conversation with Vivian. All these years, I'd thought I was protecting myself from her judgment by hiding my success. Now I wonder if I was actually protecting her from having to confront her own choices. The video call connects, revealing Raj's concerned face alongside our night team in Singapore. The technical discussion that follows temporarily pushes family complications aside as we troubleshoot the security anomaly. 20 minutes later, with the solution implemented and verification sequences running properly again, I end the call and prepare to return to the reception. As I approach the glass doors, I spot my parents through the window, huddled in conversation with Jason Chen. My father's animated gestures and my mother's rapt attention suggest they're finally learning the truth about their elder daughter's career. Next to them stands my Uncle Robert, my father's older brother and senior partner at the family law firm, the same firm my father had always assumed I would join after Dartmouth. The irony doesn't escape me. For years, family gatherings had featured Uncle Robert's gentle inquiries about when I might get back on track and consider law school again. Now he's listening to Jason Chen, hanging on every word as the CEO apparently details my contributions to the tech industry. Taking a deep breath, I push open the terrace door and step back into the reception. The orchestra has moved on to a more upbeat selection, and couples crowd the dance floor. Near the elaborate wedding cake display, Vivian and Eric pose for photographs, their smiles professionally maintained despite the earlier tension. "There she is!" Jason exclaims as I approach the family group. "Olivia, I was just telling your parents about the Robinson contract. They had no idea you led the team that secured that government deal." My mother's expression is difficult to read, somewhere between pride and confusion. "Darling, why didn't you tell us you were doing so well? All this time we thought." She trails off, perhaps realizing how it sounds. "We thought you were a failure" isn't something a mother wants to admit saying, even implicitly. It never seemed like the right time, I say diplomatically, though the excuse sounds weak even to my own ears. My father clears his throat. "Jason tells us your team is responsible for securing some very high-profile clients." He mentioned government contracts. The hint of respect in his voice is new. My father, who had spent years subtly suggesting that anything outside the legal profession was somehow less prestigious, less important. "Several," I confirm. "The Robinson contract was particularly significant for us." Uncle Robert leans forward. "The Robinson contract? You don't mean the Department of Defense Cybersecurity Initiative? That Robinson contract?" I nod, surprised. He's familiar with it. The contract had been headline news in tech circles, but hardly mainstream knowledge. "My God," he says, looking genuinely impressed for the first time since I'd announced my decision to leave Dartmouth. "I sit on a foundation board with General Mills. He mentioned that contract completely revolutionized their approach to digital security." Jason beams like a proud parent. That was Olivia's team. Her security protocol design beat out competitors with decades more experience in the field. My parents exchange glances, a silent communication developed over 30 years of marriage. I recognize it well. They're recalibrating, adjusting their understanding of their daughter in real time. "We had no idea," my mother finally says. "You never talk about your work, Olivia. You've let us believe—" She hesitates, perhaps reluctant to admit what they'd believed. That I was struggling, I finish for her. That leaving Dartmouth was the biggest mistake of my life, and I was too proud to admit it. My father has the grace to look slightly abashed. We were concerned, not judgmental. The distinction seems meaningless after years of subtle digs and well-meaning but condescending offers of help. Every family gathering had featured some variation of, "I know someone who might be able to help you find a more stable position," or "Law school applications are accepted year-round, you know." "I'm curious, though," my mother continues, her social grace reasserting itself. "Why maintain the pretense? Why let us believe you were less successful than you are?" It's the same question Vivian asked, and I still don't have a simple answer. The truth is layered, complicated by family dynamics that stretch back to childhood. It seemed easier, I say finally. Every time I achieved something in my field, it was dismissed because it wasn't the field you understood or valued. After a while, it didn't seem worth the effort to explain my successes to people who had already decided my choice was a failure. The harsh truth lands like a stone in still water, sending ripples of discomfort through our small circle. Jason, sensing the sudden tension, tactfully excuses himself to mingle with other guests. Left alone with my parents and uncle, I brace for defensiveness or denial. Instead, my father surprises me. "I'm sorry," he says simply. "I didn't realize we were doing that." The unexpected apology momentarily leaves me speechless. In our family, apologies are rare and usually qualified with explanations or justifications. "We were worried," my mother adds, placing her hand on my arm. "When you left Dartmouth, it seemed so impulsive. We didn't understand your vision, and I suppose we didn't try hard enough to see it. I didn't make it easy, I admit. At some point, I stopped trying to explain and just let you believe what you wanted to believe." Uncle Robert, pragmatic as always, cuts to the heart of the matter. "Well, it seems we've all been operating under false assumptions. The question is, where do we go from here?" Before anyone can answer, a commotion near the cake table draws our attention. Vivian stands there, champagne glass in hand, clearly preparing for an impromptu speech. The DJ lowers the music as she taps her glass with a spoon. "If I could have everyone's attention, please," she calls, her voice carrying across the ballroom with practiced projection. "Eric and I want to thank you all for sharing this special day with us." The guests quiet down, turning toward the bride expectantly. Vivian's gaze finds me in the crowd, and something passes between us, a moment of silent communication, as loaded as the one I'd witnessed between our parents. "But before we cut the cake, I'd like to say something else," she continues. "Many of you know my sister, Olivia." She gestures toward me, and suddenly all eyes in the room shift in my direction. My stomach tightens with apprehension. What is she doing? What many of you don't know, what I didn't fully appreciate until today, is what an extraordinary woman she is. The unexpected praise catches me off guard. This isn't the Vivian I know, the sister who has spent years subtly undermining my choices and achievements. For those who haven't heard, my sister is apparently something of a genius in the tech world, Vivian continues, her tone light but with an undercurrent I can't quite identify. She's been quietly revolutionizing cybersecurity while some of us— She pauses, her smile tightening fractionally. "We're making assumptions about her life choices." A ripple of uncomfortable laughter travels through the crowd. Many guests shift awkwardly, perhaps recalling their own contributions to the family narrative about poor, struggling Olivia. "So, I'd like to propose a toast." Vivian raises her glass higher. "To my brilliant sister, who taught me an important lesson on my wedding day. Never judge someone's success by standards that aren't their own." The guests murmur appreciatively and raise their glasses. The sentiment sounds generous on the surface, but something in Vivian's delivery makes it feel more complex. Is this a genuine olive branch or a sophisticated form of damage control? The public acknowledgement of my success neatly absolves her of any past disparagement while positioning her as magnanimous and supportive. As glasses are raised in my direction and polite applause follows, I maintain my composed smile, years of corporate presentations having trained me to mask my true reactions. Across the room, Jason Chen catches my eye and gives me an encouraging nod, clearly pleased by this public recognition of his valued team member. "And now," Vivian continues smoothly, "my wonderful husband and I would love to share our cake with all of you." The attention shifts back to the bride and groom as they position themselves behind the elaborate 5-tier wedding cake. The photographer directs them into the perfect cake-cutting pose, and the moment passes, leaving me to wonder what just happened and what it means for the future of our complicated relationship. My mother squeezes my arm gently. "That was lovely of her," she says, apparently taking Vivian's toast at face value. "Yes," I agree noncommittally. "Lovely." As the evening progresses and guests return to dancing and socializing, I find a quiet moment to step away from the reception. Finding an unoccupied alcove near the coat check, I pull out my phone to check for updates from the Singapore team. The security issue appears to be fully resolved, with all systems running normally again. I'm about to return to the reception when a text notification appears from an unexpected source. "Eric, Vivian's new husband. We need to talk about Meridian's potential investment in my father's company." Vivian doesn't know I'm reaching out, but this connection could be huge for both our families. "Coffee tomorrow before we leave for our honeymoon?" the message confirms. What I'd suspected from the moment Jason Chen recognized me, my professional position has suddenly transformed my value within the family dynamic. The sister who wasn't worth listening to for 6 years has instantly become a potential business asset. As I stare at the message, unsure how to respond, another text arrives, this one from Vivian. "We should talk before you leave tomorrow. Alone. My room, 9 a.m.? I slip the phone back into my clutch without responding to either message. The wedding cake is being served now, the bride and groom circulating among their guests with practiced smiles and gracious thank yous. From a distance, no one would guess the undercurrents of revelation and readjustment flowing beneath the perfect surface of Vivian's special day. My success, hidden for so long, has exploded into view in the most public way possible. The family. Mythology has been shattered, forcing everyone, myself included, to reconsider the roles we've been playing. Whatever happens next, one thing is certain. I can no longer hide behind the comfortable fiction of being the family's underachiever. For better or worse, my true professional identity is now part of the family narrative, and we'll all have to find a new equilibrium that accommodates this reality. As I rejoin the reception, accepting a slice of wedding cake from a passing server, I realize I'm standing at a crossroads. The next 24 hours will determine whether my family and I can build a new relationship based on truth and mutual respect, or whether the revelation of my success will simply create new complications in an already strained dynamic. Either way, there's no going back to the way things were. The truth is out, and we'll all have to deal with the consequences. Starting with a 9 a.m. meeting with the sister who has spent years telling everyone I was broke, only to discover I might be the most financially successful person at her wedding. Sleep evades me. I lie awake in my hotel room, staring at the ornate ceiling as moonlight filters through the partially drawn curtains. The events of the evening play on repeat in my mind. Jason Chen's enthusiastic greeting, my parents' shocked expressions, Vivian's calculated toast that managed to acknowledge my success while simultaneously positioning herself as supportive and enlightened. My phone glows with unanswered messages. Eric wants to leverage my connection to Meridian for his father's business. Vivian wants a private meeting before I leave. My mother has sent 3 increasingly concerned texts asking if we can have breakfast together. Even Uncle Robert, who once dismissed my career choice as playing with computers, now wants to discuss potential cybersecurity needs for the family law firm. The irony isn't lost on me. For 6 years, I've been the family afterthought, the cautionary tale, the one who made the wrong choice. Now suddenly, I'm a valuable connection, a potential business asset, a source of previously unwanted expertise. I roll onto my side, checking the time. 3:17 a.m. In 4 hours, I need to be coherent enough to navigate whatever conversation Vivian has planned. Then I have a flight back to Seattle at noon, returning to the life I've built far away from family expectations and disappointments. My tablet pings with a secure message from Raj, all systems restored. Full report attached. Take your time reviewing. Everything's stable. At least something in my life is running smoothly. I send back a quick acknowledgement and force myself to close my eyes. Sleep eventually comes, but it's fitful and unsatisfying. When my alarm chimes at 7:30 a.m., I feel gritty-eyed and off balance. After a quick shower, I consider my wardrobe options. Yesterday, I dressed to blend in. Today, I find myself deliberately choosing the outfit that most clearly communicates my professional success. The tailored charcoal pantsuit is subtle but unmistakably expensive, paired with a silk blouse in deep burgundy. The ensemble cost more than my first month's rent in Seattle and was purchased to wear when presenting to Meridian's board of directors. The woman in the mirror looks confident, successful, unapologetic. Everything I've been hiding from my family for years. Breakfast service has already begun when I reach the hotel restaurant. I spot my parents at a corner table, deep in conversation that abruptly halts when they notice me approaching. My mother waves me over with the too bright smile that always signals familial tension. "Olivia, darling, we weren't sure we'd see you this morning," she says as I take a seat. "You disappeared rather early last night." "It was a long day," I reply, diplomatically. "And I had some work issues to handle remotely." My father studies me over his coffee cup, his expression uncharacteristically hesitant. "Important work, from what we've learned." It's not quite a question, but the invitation to elaborate is clear. After years of hiding my achievements, the temptation to finally share them is strong. But old habits die hard, and I find myself giving a non-committal shrug. Every job has its moments. "Olivia," my mother says, setting down her teacup with precision. "I think we're past the point of downplaying, don't you?" The gentle reproach surprises me. Usually my mother is the first to change subjects when conversations turn uncomfortable. "Jason Chen told us you're responsible for security systems that protect government agencies," my father adds. "That you've developed protocols being implemented globally. That you lead a team of, what was it? 15, I supply automatically. 15 people, he repeats, shaking his head slightly. "Our daughter manages 15 people at one of the most influential tech companies in the country, and we had no idea." The hurt in his voice sounds genuine, which catches me off guard. I'd prepared for defensiveness or dismissal, not this wounded confusion. "It never seemed relevant to bring up," I say, busying myself with the coffee pot in the center of the table. Every time I mentioned anything about my work, the response was always some variation of, "When are you going to get a real career?" or "Law school applications are accepted year-round." My parents exchange glances, a silent conversation passing between them. "We may have been less supportive than we should have been," my mother finally admits. "When you left Dartmouth, it seemed so impulsive. So unlike you." "We worried," my father adds. "The tech industry seemed so unstable, especially compared to law. We wanted security for you." "I have security," I say quietly. "I have a corner office on the executive floor. I have a team that respects me. I have 3 patents pending and an algorithm named after me." My mother reaches across the table and covers my hand with hers. "Why didn't you tell us? Why let us believe you were struggling all this time?" It's the same question Vivian asked last night. The same question I've been asking myself in the quiet hours since. The answer isn't simple, but as I look at my parents' genuinely perplexed expressions, I realize I owe them at least an attempt at honesty. At first, it was because there wasn't much to tell. Entry-level IT work isn't glamorous, and I knew you were disappointed in my choice. Then, as I started to advance, it became complicated. I rotate my coffee cup slowly, choosing my words. Every family gathering included some comment about my phase or how I could still get back on track. After a while, it seemed easier to let you believe what you wanted to believe than to constantly defend a choice you'd already decided was wrong. My father sets down his coffee cup with more force than necessary. "So this was some sort of, what? Test? To see if we'd support you regardless?" "No," I say firmly. "It wasn't a test. It was self-preservation. Every time I achieved something, In my field, it was dismissed because it wasn't in the field you understood or valued. Eventually, I built separate lives, my real one in Seattle, and the simplified version I presented to family. That's not fair, Olivia, my mother protests. We've always been proud of you. Proud of my potential, I correct her. Disappointed in my choices. There's a difference. The uncomfortable truth settles over our table like a physical presence. After a moment, my father sighs heavily. Perhaps we haven't been as open-minded as we should have been, he concedes. But maintaining this deception for 6 years seems excessive. We're your parents. Before I can respond, a shadow falls across our table. I look up to find Vivian standing there, impeccably dressed in a cream-colored sheath dress despite the early hour and what must have been a late night. Mom, Dad, she says with a practiced smile. Would you mind if I borrowed Olivia for a bit? We have some sister things to discuss before she leaves. My parents nod, seemingly relieved at the interruption of our increasingly uncomfortable conversation. Of course, dear, my mother says. Olivia, we'll speak more before you go? It's half question, half instruction. I nod non-committally and follow Vivian as she leads me through the hotel lobby toward the elevators. Nice suit, she comments as we wait. Armani? Burberry, I correct her, surprised she recognized the designer. Vivian has always been more fashion-conscious than me, but her taste typically runs to trendier labels. It looks expensive, she says, the observation landing somewhere between compliment and accusation. It was. The elevator arrives and we step in silently. Vivian pushes the button for the penthouse suite, the one her new in-laws insisted on providing for the newlyweds, despite her protests that they'd be leaving for their honeymoon the next day. As we ascend, I prepare myself for whatever comes next. The Vivian I grew up with was competitive and status-conscious, quick to perceive slights and unlikely to forgive perceived betrayals. But last night revealed complexities in her feelings I hadn't considered before. The penthouse suite is predictably luxurious, all panoramic windows and custom furnishings. Wedding gifts are piled on every surface, and a half-packed suitcase lies open on a luggage rack, designer resort wear carefully folded inside. Eric's having breakfast with his parents, Vivian explains, gesturing toward a seating area overlooking the city. We have the place to ourselves. I take a seat on the immaculate white sofa, careful not to wrinkle my suit. Vivian remains standing, moving restlessly around the room, touching objects without really seeing them. I keep thinking about what you said last night, she finally begins. About me needing you to fail to validate my choices. I say nothing, allowing her the space to continue. I didn't want to believe it was true, she says, stopping to look directly at me. But I've been up half the night thinking about it, and maybe there's something to it. The admission clearly costs her, and I find myself unexpectedly moved by her willingness to consider such an uncomfortable self-reflection. This is a side of Vivian I rarely see, the thoughtful, introspective person beneath the polished exterior. When you left Dartmouth, she continues, everything changed. Suddenly, I was the one carrying the family expectations, the one who had to succeed in the prescribed way. She smooths an invisible wrinkle from her dress. It was easier when your choices seemed to be leading nowhere. It made mine feel more justified. I never meant to make your choices feel less valid, I say quietly. We wanted different things, that's all. But you got both, she says, a trace of the old bitterness creeping into her voice. You got the freedom to forge your own path and the success everyone respects. I followed the script perfectly and ended up... She trails off, gesturing vaguely at our opulent surroundings. Exactly where you wanted to be, I finish for her. Married to a successful man from a good family, starting your residency at a prestigious hospital, living the life you've always said you wanted. Is it? She asks, so softly I almost miss it. Sometimes I wonder if I wanted it or if I just never questioned whether there were other options. The vulnerability in her admission catches me off guard. In all our years growing up together, Vivian has never expressed doubt about her chosen path. Are you saying you're unhappy with your choices? I ask carefully. No, not unhappy, she clarifies quickly. Just curious, I guess, about the road not taken. She sits down across from me, her posture perfectly straight, despite the emotional weight of our conversation. When I saw Jason Chen light up at the mention of your name, when I heard how you've built something impressive on your own terms, it made me wonder what else might have been possible. It's not too late to explore other possibilities, I offer. You're only 30, she laughs without humor. I'm starting my surgical residency in 3 weeks. I just got married. The script is pretty well established at this point. Scripts can be rewritten, I say. Or at least amended. Vivian studies me thoughtfully. Is that why you're here? Why you came to the wedding despite everything? To amend our script? The question hits closer to home than I expect. Why did I come? After years of strained interactions and polite distance, what made me accept this invitation when I'd declined so many others? I suppose I hoped things could be different, I admit. Your note seemed genuine. It was, she says quickly. Is. I do want to repair things between us, Liv. I'm just not sure how, especially now that I realize how much of our relationship has been built on misconceptions. Some I created, some you allowed. Her phrasing is careful, acknowledging her role while subtly reminding me of mine. Typical Vivian, never taking full responsibility even in moments of apparent vulnerability. Yet there's truth in what she says. I did allow the misconceptions to flourish, using them as a shield against family judgment. Where do we go from here? I ask, echoing Uncle Robert's practical question from last night. Vivian is silent for a long moment, considering. I think we start with honesty, she finally says. No more pretending you're less successful than you are. No more pretending I don't sometimes question my choices. It's a reasonable suggestion, but something in her tone makes me cautious. And what does honesty look like practically? Because I noticed Eric texted me last night about using my connection to Meridian for his father's business. Vivian has the grace to look embarrassed. I told him that was premature, but you can't blame him for seeing the potential opportunity. Actually, I can, I counter. 6 years of being dismissed by this family, and suddenly I'm valuable because I might be useful professionally? That doesn't feel like the basis for honest reconciliation. She sighs, running a hand through her perfectly styled hair, a rare gesture of frustration I haven't seen since we were teenagers. You're right. That was tactless of him. She meets my eyes directly. But can you see it from our side? For years, we thought you were deliberately underachieving, possibly struggling financially. Then suddenly we discover you're this successful tech executive with connections to people like Jason Chen. It's a lot to process in one evening. I understand her point, but the justification still feels hollow after years of subtle and not-so-subtle put-downs. So what now? We just pretend those years of condescension never happened? That you didn't tell your in-laws I was the family charity case just hours before Jason recognized me? I said that in a moment of insecurity, Vivian admits, having the grace to look ashamed. The Harrisons are so focused on status and connections. When Eric's mother asked about you, I was worried that saying my sister works in IT would sound unimpressive next to surgical resident and finance executive. The irony is almost painful. All this time, I'd assumed Vivian downplayed my career, out of dismissiveness, when at least part of her motivation had been the same insecurity that led me to hide my success. We've both been projecting our insecurities onto each other, haven't we? I say quietly. Vivian nods, a small, sad smile touching her lips. Seems like we haven't outgrown our childhood competition after all. A knock at the door interrupts our moment of connection. Eric enters, handsome in casual designer wear that probably cost more than most people's formal attire. "Sorry to interrupt," he says, his smile not quite reaching his eyes as he glances between us. "The car for the airport will be here in an hour, Viv. We should finish packing." The reminder of their impending honeymoon shifts the energy in the room, returning us to the practical realities that lie beyond this moment of tentative reconciliation. "I should let you prepare," I say, standing and smoothing my suit jacket. "My flight leaves soon as well." "Wait," Vivian says, rising quickly. "We haven't finished." Eric looks between us, clearly trying to gauge the situation. "I can give you a few more minutes," he offers, though his tone suggests reluctance. "It's fine," I assure them both. "We've made a start. The rest can wait until you're back from Bali." Vivian hesitates, then steps forward and embraces me. Not the air kiss we typically exchange at family gatherings, but a real hug, brief but genuine. "We'll talk more soon," she says as she pulls away. "And I'd like to see where you work sometime. Your actual office, not just the carefully curated stories." The invitation surprises me with its sincerity. "I'd like that," I reply, and realize I mean it. As I walk back to my room to collect my luggage, I reflect on the revelations of the past 24 hours. The family mythology has been shattered, forcing all of us to reconsider the roles we've been playing and the assumptions we've been making. My phone buzzes with a calendar reminder for my weekly team meeting tomorrow morning and a text from Raj confirming that the Singapore situation remains resolved. My two worlds, personal and professional, are colliding in ways I never anticipated, requiring me to integrate parts of myself I've kept carefully separated for years. I'm not naive enough to believe that one weekend of revelations will instantly repair 6 years of misunderstandings and carefully cultivated distance. There will be awkward conversations ahead, moments of backsliding into old patterns, necessary boundary setting as my family adjusts to this new reality. But as I check out of the hotel and slide into the waiting taxi, I feel lighter somehow. The exhaustion of maintaining two separate identities, successful tech executive in Seattle, underachieving disappointment to my family, has been a weight I didn't fully recognize until it started to lift. Whatever comes next, at least it will be based on truth rather than comfortable fictions. And that, I decide as the taxi pulls away from the hotel where everything changed, is a foundation worth building upon. The Seattle skyline greets me through the airplane window, familiar glass, towers reflecting the rare afternoon sunshine. Home. After the emotional turbulence of the weekend, the sight of it centers me. My phone buzzes with landing notifications and a message from Raj. "Team eager for your return. Davidson contract finalized. Celebration planned." Good news. The Davidson contract represents months of work and will significantly expand our security division's footprint in the healthcare sector. I text back a quick acknowledgement and promise to be in the office early tomorrow. As passengers begin the ritualistic unbuckling and standing, I notice another message that arrived during the flight, from my mother. "We're proud of you, Olivia. Always have been, even when we didn't understand your path. Your father and I would like to visit Seattle soon, see your life there. If that's something you'd welcome." The message sits heavily in my chest, a complex tangle of emotions I'm not ready to untangle at 30,000 feet. I slide the phone back into my bag without responding. There will be time for that later, when I'm back on solid ground in more ways than one. My apartment welcomes me with the peaceful minimalism I've cultivated, clean lines, functional furniture, and the floor-to-ceiling windows that justified the exorbitant rent. No wedding gifts cluttering every surface, no family photos watching from the walls. Just space to think, to be. I unpack methodically, hanging the Burberry suit that silently witnessed this weekend's revelations. The emerald dress follows, still carrying a faint trace of the wedding reception's floral arrangements. as I smooth the fabric. I'm transported back to the moment Jason Chen's voice cut through the ballroom, changing everything. My laptop chimes from the kitchen counter where I set it down. A video call request from Raj. I accept, and his familiar face appears on screen, backdropped by our office's glass-walled conference room. "Welcome back," he says. "Hope the wedding wasn't too excruciating." Raj knows the broad strokes of my family dynamic, enough to understand why I rarely mention them and never invite them to company events. "It was educational," I reply, settling onto a bar stool. "For everyone involved." His eyebrows lift at my tone. "That sounds ominous. Jason Chen was there." "Our Jason Chen? CEO Jason Chen?" I nod. "My new brother-in-law's father apparently has business connections with him. He recognized me immediately." Understanding dawns on Raj's face. "Ah, and your family didn't know about any of it," I confirm. "My executive position, the team, the Anderson Award. They thought I was still answering help desk calls and struggling financially." Raj winces. "That must have been illuminating," I finish for him. "For everyone." "Including you?" he asks perceptively. I consider the question. "Especially me. Turns out I've been operating under some misconceptions of my own." Before he can inquire further, I redirect the conversation to work matters. The Davidson contract details, the resolved Singapore situation, the team celebration he's planned for tomorrow. "You're sure you're okay?" he asks as our call winds down. "You seem different." "I'm fine," I assure him, though fine hardly captures the seismic shifts occurring beneath my carefully constructed professional exterior. Just processing. After we disconnect, I move to my home office, a space I've designed for both comfort and functionality, with multiple monitors and the ergonomic chair that cost more than my first car. This is where I feel most myself, surrounded by evidence of the life I've built through my own choices and efforts. On the bookshelf sits the small Lucite Anderson Award, understated despite its significance in our industry. Beside it, a framed team photo from last year's retreat, 15 diverse faces grinning from a mountaintop after a grueling hike that became a metaphor for our collaborative problem-solving approach. These are the markers of my success, the tangible proof of the path I chose when I left Dartmouth against my family's wishes. For years, I kept them carefully separated from my family narrative. Now, those worlds have collided, and I'm still determining what remains in the aftermath. My laptop pings with an email notification. The sender's name makes me pause. Eric Harrison, my new brother-in-law. Subject line, Meridian Opportunities. I hesitate before opening it, suspecting what I'll find inside. "Olivia, I hope this finds you well after your journey home. Vivian and I are about to board our flight to Bali, but I wanted to reach out regarding the potential synergies between Meridian Technologies and Harrison Financial. My father has been seeking a cybersecurity partnership for our new financial services platform, and your position at Meridian presents a serendipitous connection. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting when we return from our honeymoon? Jason Chen mentioned you're leading the Singapore expansion, which aligns perfectly with our APAC growth strategy. Looking forward to developing both our family and professional relationships. Best regards, Eric Harrison, Chief Strategy Officer, Harrison Financial Group." The email is exactly what I expected. Professionally worded, strategically focused, completely devoid of any acknowledgement of the complex family dynamics. Underlying our new connection, Eric sees an opportunity and is pursuing it efficiently, just as he would any other business prospect. I close the email without responding. Whatever business relationship might develop between Meridian and Harrison Financial will need to be evaluated on its own merits, through proper channels, not as a favor to my sister's new husband. My phone buzzes again. Another text from my mother. "Darling, did you receive my earlier message? Your father is checking flight options for next month. Let us know what dates might work. The persistence is typical. My mother has never been comfortable with unanswered communications. In her world, relationships are maintained through consistent contact, regardless of the underlying quality of those connections. I set the phone aside again, unwilling to make decisions about future family visits while still processing the wedding weekend revelations. Tomorrow will be consumed with work, the Davidson contract implementation, team meetings, budget projections for the next quarter. Family complications can wait. Sleep comes easier than expected after the cross-country flight and emotional exhaustion of the weekend. When my alarm chimes at 5:30 a.m., I feel surprisingly refreshed, ready to step back into the professional identity that has always felt more authentic than any family role. The morning routine grounds me. Premium coffee brewed precisely, protein-rich, breakfast consumed while reviewing overnight system reports, tailored pantsuit selected from the organized closet. By the time I slide into my car for the commute to Meridian's downtown headquarters, I've almost convinced myself that the weekend's events can be compartmentalized, separated from my day-to-day reality. That illusion shatters the moment I walk into the office lobby. Jason Chen stands near the security desk, engaged in conversation with our chief operations officer. He spots me immediately, his face lighting with recognition. "Olivia, perfect timing. I was just telling Marcus about your sister's wedding." He gestures me over with the casual authority of someone accustomed to having his summons obeyed. I join them, maintaining my professional composure despite the unexpected collision of worlds I'd hoped to keep separate for at least one workday. "Your family seems lovely," Jason continues, apparently oblivious to the complicated subtext. "And quite accomplished. Your sister, a surgical resident, correct? And your new brother-in-law's financial background could be valuable as we expand our services in that sector." Marcus raises an eyebrow slightly, clearly curious about this previously unmentioned family connection. In 3 years of working closely together, I've never discussed my family in any detail. "The wedding was lovely," I say neutrally. "And yes, Vivian is completing her surgical residency." "You must be very proud," Jason says. "Though I imagine they're equally proud of your accomplishments here at Meridian. The Anderson Award is no small achievement." I nod noncommittally, unwilling to correct my CEO's assumptions about my family's awareness of my professional success, or at least their awareness prior to this weekend. "Speaking of achievements," Marcus interjects smoothly, "the Davidson contract implementation team is waiting for us upstairs." "Of course," Jason says. "Don't let me keep you. Excellent work on that contract, Olivia. And do let me know if your brother-in-law's father reaches out regarding those cybersecurity solutions we discussed at the wedding. Could be a valuable partnership." As we step into the elevator, Marcus gives me a curious look. "I didn't realize you had connections to Harrison Financial. That could be useful for the APAC expansion." "It's a recent development," I say, deliberately vague. "Through my sister's marriage." Marcus, perceptive as always, seems to sense my reluctance to elaborate. Well, regardless of how it came about, Jason seems enthusiastic about the potential. That's never a bad thing. "Indeed," I agree, grateful for his professional discretion. The elevator doors open to the executive floor, where my team awaits in the glass-walled conference room. Raj catches my eye with a raised eyebrow, clearly having noticed my arrival, with Marcus. The morning proceeds with blessed normalcy. Technical discussions, implementation timelines, resource allocations. This is the world I've built for myself, where my value is measured by my contributions rather than my adherence to family expectations or narratives. By mid-afternoon, I've almost managed to refocus entirely on work when my assistant appears at my office door. "Sorry to interrupt," she says, "but there's a call for you on line 2. A Dr. Vivian Harrison." She says it's personal. The surprise must show on my face. Vivian should be halfway to Bali by now, not calling my office. Thank you, I say, reaching for the phone. I'll take it. I wait until my assistant has closed the door before picking up. Vivian, aren't you supposed to be on a plane? Flight delay, she says, her voice tight with what sounds like controlled irritation. 5 hours and counting, just enough time to check my messages and find an interesting email from Eric to his father. My stomach tightens with premonition. Oh? An email outlining the potential business advantages of my sister's connections at Meridian Technologies, she continues, her tone dangerously calm. Apparently, your position is now a strategic family asset to be leveraged. I received a similar email from Eric this morning, I admit. I haven't responded. The line goes quiet for a moment. He didn't tell me he'd contacted you directly, Vivian finally says, and I detect genuine hurt beneath the controlled exterior. We talked about waiting, about respecting boundaries after everything that happened this weekend. I see, I say carefully, uncertain whether this call is an apology, a warning, or something else entirely. No, I don't think you do, Vivian says, with surprising vehemence. I specifically told Eric that any business connection would have to develop organically, if at all. That treating you like a networking opportunity immediately after discovering your position would be incredibly insensitive, after years of, well, you know. The fact that she can't directly acknowledge the years of dismissing my career speaks volumes, but the sentiment itself surprises me. I'd assumed Vivian would be fully aligned with Eric's strategic thinking. I appreciate that, I say cautiously, though the email has already been sent. Which is why I'm calling, she says, to apologize for my husband's presumption and ask that you disregard his message. Whatever professional relationship might develop between your company and his family should happen through proper channels, not as some kind of family obligation. The statement so perfectly mirrors my own thinking that I'm momentarily speechless. This version of Vivian, thoughtful about boundaries, aware of how her husband's actions might appear, concerned about leveraging family connections inappropriately, is unfamiliar territory. Thank you, I say finally. That's unexpectedly considerate. A short laugh comes through the line. Don't sound so surprised. I'm capable of personal growth, contrary to what you might believe. I never said you weren't, I counter, though we both know that's not entirely true. In my mental narrative, Vivian has always been cast as the inflexible antagonist, committed to the family script and judgmental of my deviations from it. Listen, she says, her voice softening slightly. This weekend revealed a lot of misconceptions on both sides. I'm trying to do better, to see you as you actually are, not as I've been imagining you. The admission touches something in me, a longing for connection I've suppressed beneath layers of professional accomplishment and deliberate distance. I'm trying to do the same, I acknowledge. It's not easy after so many years of established patterns. No, she agrees. It isn't. But maybe worth the effort? It's phrased as a question, tentative in a way Vivian rarely allows herself to be. Before I can respond, I hear airport announcements in the background. I should go, she says. They're finally boarding. But Liv, I meant what I said about seeing your office someday. Your real life, not the version you've been presenting at family gatherings. The invitation stands, I say, surprised to find I still mean it. When you're back from your honeymoon. After we disconnect, I sit in my executive office, surrounded by the symbols of the success I've hidden from my family for years. The irony isn't lost on me. All this time, I believed I was protecting myself from their judgment, when perhaps I was also denying all of us the chance for a more authentic relationship. My phone pings with a notification from my mother. Third, attempt at confirming those Seattle visit dates. This time, I begin to type a response, no longer certain that keeping my world separate is the protection I once believed it to be. 3 weeks after Vivian's wedding, I stand in Seattle, Tacoma. International airport waiting for my parents' flight to arrive. After several text exchanges and one surprisingly pleasant phone call, I'd finally agreed to their visit. Now, watching the arrivals board update, I question the wisdom of that decision. My phone buzzes with a text from Raj. Davidson implementation. Ahead of schedule. Board very impressed with preliminary results. Good news, professionally speaking. The Davidson healthcare security contract has been my team's primary focus since I returned from Connecticut. Immersing myself in work provided a welcome distraction from the ongoing family recalibration. Another text arrives, this one from Vivian. Parents nervous about visit. Dad changed shirts twice before leaving for airport. Mom packed and repacked. Her suitcase 4 times. Be gentle with them. The insight into my parents' anxiety surprises me. In my imagination, they were approaching this visit with the same critical lens they'd applied to my life choices for years, not with nervousness, about reconnecting with their eldest daughter. Olivia! My mother's voice cuts through the airport noise. I turn to see my parents navigating through the crowd, both looking slightly disoriented in the unfamiliar terminal. My father carries their luggage, a matched set my mother has owned since before I was born, while my mother clutches her purse with the tight grip she reserves for travel situations. There you are, she says as they reach me. The flight was dreadful. Turbulence the entire way from Chicago. The flight was fine, Elizabeth, my father corrects with the weary patience of a decades-long relationship. Barely a bump. Well, it felt turbulent to me, she insists before turning her attention fully to me. Olivia, you look professional. It's her attempt at a compliment, I realize. In my tailored trousers and silk blouse, standard workday attire, I certainly present a different image from the deliberately casual appearance I'd maintained during family visits. I came straight from the office, I explain, taking one of their suitcases. We're implementing a major new contract. With the healthcare company, my father says, nodding. Davidson Medical Systems, correct? I looked them up. Very impressive. Client. The fact that he researched my current project catches me off guard. Previous visits home had featured perfunctory questions about how work is going, with minimal interest in the details of my actual responsibilities. Yes, that's right, I confirm as we make our way toward the parking garage. It's a significant expansion of our security services in the healthcare sector. And you're leading this implementation? My mother asks, clearly making an effort to engage with the specifics of my career. Yes, my team designed the security protocols that Davidson is adopting across their network. My father nods approvingly. Must be quite the responsibility. How many hospitals is it again? 27 facilities across the Northwest, with potential expansion to their Eastern Division next year if the initial implementation meets performance metrics. We reach my car, the sleek German sedan I purchased after my last promotion, and my father gives it an appreciative once-over. Nice vehicle, he comments as I open the trunk for their luggage. Recent acquisition? About 6 months ago, reply, helping him load the suitcases. 6 months, my mother repeats softly. There's so much we don't know about your life here, Olivia. The simple observation carries the weight of all the distance I've deliberately maintained over the years. As we settle into the car and navigate out of the airport complex, I find myself wondering if that distance has protected me as effectively as I'd believed, or if it's simply created a different kind of vulnerability. I thought we'd have dinner. At home tonight, I say, changing the subject. Give you a chance to rest after the flight. Tomorrow I can show you around the city, and if you're interested, we could visit my office on Friday. We'd like that very much, my mother says quickly, almost eagerly. Jason Chen spoke so highly of your workplace. The mention of my CEO still creates a strange dissonance. The collision of my separate worlds remains disorienting even weeks after the initial revelation. It's nothing spectacular, I caution, automatically tempering expectations as I've done. For years. Then I catch myself. Actually, that's not true. Our headquarters is quite impressive. floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound, cutting-edge technology. It was named one of the top tech workplaces in the Pacific Northwest last year. My father's eyes meet mine in the rearview mirror. You don't need to downplay your success anymore, Olivia. We get it now. We were wrong. The direct acknowledgement stuns me into momentary silence. My father has never been one to admit mistakes easily, particularly regarding his children's life choices. It's not about right or wrong, I finally say, focusing on the traffic ahead. It's about different values and expectations. And about communication, my mother adds, or lack thereof, on all sides. The drive to my apartment continues with surprisingly comfortable conversation. My parents ask thoughtful questions about Seattle, my neighborhood, the tech industry landscape. I find myself answering more fully than I would have in the past, no longer filtering my responses to minimize my professional accomplishments. When we arrive at my building, a modern high-rise with doorman service and panoramic city views, I watch their reactions carefully. My mother takes in the marble-floored lobby with wide eyes, while my father notes the security features with an attorney's attention to detail. "This is quite a place," he comments as the elevator ascends to my floor. "Very different from what we imagined. What did you imagine?" I ask, genuinely curious about the picture they'd constructed of my life. My parents exchange glances, that silent communication honed through decades of marriage. Something more transitional, my mother finally admits. Like you were still waiting for your real life to begin. The assessment is painfully accurate. They had indeed viewed my choices as temporary, my success as provisional, my entire Seattle existence as a holding pattern until I returned to the path they'd envisioned. "This is my real life," I say as the elevator doors open to my floor. It has been for years. My apartment continues the revelations. The spacious open floor plan with its carefully chosen furniture, the home office with awards and professional certifications displayed, the kitchen with high-end appliances that betray my serious culinary hobby. All of it presents a picture of established success and settled adulthood that contradicts the narrative they've held about me. "You cook?" my father asks, surprised, as he takes in the professional grade range and well-used cookware. "I learned in college," I explain, setting their luggage in the guest room. "It was cheaper than eating out, and I discovered I enjoy it. I host dinner parties for my team occasionally." "You never cooked at home," my mother notes, running her hand along the marble countertop. "You never let me," I remind her gently. "You said I made too much mess in your kitchen." She looks startled by this truth, as though encountering a memory from someone else's life. Did I really? That doesn't sound like me. But it was precisely her, the mother who valued order and clean surfaces over the creative chaos of learning, who preferred the appearance of perfection to the reality of growth. Just as my father valued secure traditional career paths over innovative risks, and Vivian prioritized external validation over personal fulfillment. "Would you like something to drink after your flight?" I ask, changing the subject. "I have wine, or I can make coffee." "Wine would be lovely," my mother says, still looking around the apartment with newfound eyes. As I open a bottle of the Washington Red I've come to prefer, my father examines the photographs on my bookshelf, professional shots of my team at company events, hiking trips with Seattle friends, a candid picture from the Anderson Award ceremony. "You have a whole life we know nothing about," he says quietly. "Friends, colleagues, achievements we've never heard about." "Yes," I acknowledge, pouring 3 glasses. "I do." "Why, Olivia?" my mother asks, accepting her wine. "Why keep all this from us? Were we really so judgmental that you couldn't share your success?" The question deserves a thoughtful answer rather than the defensive response that rises instinctively to my lips. "It wasn't a single decision," I explain, gesturing for them to sit in the living room. "It evolved over time. After I left Dartmouth, every conversation about my future seemed to start from the premise that I'd made a mistake. When I tried to share early successes in my new field, they were dismissed as temporary or less significant than they would have been in law or medicine. My father opens his mouth as if to object, then closes it again, considering. Eventually, I continue. It seemed easier to let you maintain your narrative about my choices than to constantly defend a path you'd already decided was inferior. I built a life that didn't require your validation because I'd given up expecting to receive it. The harsh truth settles heavily in my elegant living room, at odds with the warm lighting and comfortable furniture designed to make guests feel welcome. We failed you, my father says finally. As parents, we're supposed to support our children's dreams, not force them into molds of our own design. You wanted security for me, I acknowledge. That came from love, even if the execution was flawed. But look at what you've built, my mother gestures around the apartment. All this security, this success, you achieved it on your own terms, without the path we insisted was the only viable one. Which is precisely what terrified us, my father admits. The idea that you could succeed without following our blueprint meant our entire worldview might be wrong. It's harder to face that possibility at 60 than it is at 20. The candor of his self-reflection surprises me. My father has always presented certainty about how the world works and what constitutes success. This acknowledgement of doubt and fear reveals a vulnerability I've rarely glimpsed. Vivian says you were right all along, my mother adds, sipping her wine. She called us last week, just before we left. Said watching you create your own path while she followed ours has made her question some of her choices. This revelation catches me off guard. Despite our conversation at the wedding and her call about Eric's email, I hadn't realized Vivian's reflections had extended to discussions with our parents. She's not unhappy, my mother clarifies quickly. Just contemplative, wondering if there were other options she never considered because she was so focused on meeting expectations. There are always other paths, I say. But that doesn't invalidate the one she chose. My father studies me over the rim of his wine glass. When did you get so wise? Probably around the same time I became so successful, I reply with a small smile. You just weren't paying attention. The gentle teasing breaks the tension, allowing a momentary levity that feels like the beginning of something new. A relationship based on who we actually are, rather than who we've pretended to be. As we settle into dinner later, a meal I've prepared in my own kitchen while my parents watch with interest, I find myself relaxing in their presence in a way I haven't for years. The careful facade I've maintained, downplaying my success, minimizing my achievements, presenting a deliberately understated version of myself, has been exhausting in ways I hadn't fully recognized until it became unnecessary. Tell us about this Anderson Award, my father says as we eat. Jason Chen mentioned it was significant in your industry. And so I do, explaining the innovation behind the security protocol that earned the recognition, the months of development. With my team, the validation of having industry leaders acknowledge our contribution to cybersecurity practices. My parents listen with genuine interest, asking intelligent questions despite their limited technical background. For the first time in my adult life, I feel seen by them, not as the daughter who strayed from their chosen path, but as the woman who forged her own successful one. Later, as I prepare the guest room and my parents settle in for the night, my phone buzzes with a text from Vivian. How's it going with Mom and Dad? Disaster or progress? I consider the evening, the honest conversations, the moments of connection, the beginning of a more authentic relationship based on reality rather than comfortable fictions. Progress, I reply. Slow but genuine. Her response comes quickly. Good, they're trying. We all are. As I turn out the lights and prepare for bed, I realize that the revelation at Vivian's wedding, painful and public as it was, may have been exactly what our family needed to break free from the roles and narratives we'd been trapped in for years. The truth? It seems can be both destructive and liberating, tearing down comfortable illusions while creating space for something more authentic to grow in their place. 6 months after Vivian's wedding, I stand in my office overlooking the Seattle skyline, watching rain trace patterns down the floor-to-ceiling windows. The gray afternoon suits my contemplative mood as I prepare for the quarterly leadership meeting, where I'll be officially announced as Meridian's new Chief Information Security Officer. My desk phone buzzes. "Olivia, your sister is here," my assistant announces. "Send her in," I reply, smoothing my blazer unconsciously. The door opens and Vivian enters, looking slightly out of place in my corporate domain despite her tailored outfit. This is her third visit to Seattle since the wedding, each one feeling more natural than the last as we cautiously rebuild our relationship on more honest foundations. "Congratulations, CISO Reed," she says, offering a small gift bag. I thought the occasion deserved acknowledgement. I accept the bag with surprise. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wanted to," she insists. "Open it." Inside, I find a sleek leather portfolio embossed with my new title and initials. It's tasteful, expensive, and perfectly suited to the executive I've become. Evidence that Vivian is finally seeing me clearly. "It's perfect," I say genuinely. "Thank you." She smiles, glancing around my spacious corner office with its modern furnishings and industry awards displayed on the credenza. "I still can't believe this is your world. All those years we had no idea." "To be fair, I deliberately kept you in the dark," I remind her, gesturing for her to sit on the small sofa, near the window. "True," she acknowledges. "But we weren't exactly encouraging transparency either. In the month since her wedding, our conversations have developed an unprecedented honesty, sometimes uncomfortable but ultimately healing as we dismantle the competitive dynamic that defined our relationship for decades." "How are things at the hospital?" I ask, joining her on the sofa. Vivian's expression shifts subtly. "Actually, that's partly why I came to see you in person rather than just sending the gift. I've made a decision, and I wanted you to be the first to know." The formality in her tone alerts me that whatever she's about to share is significant. "What kind of decision?" "I'm changing my specialty," she says, watching my reaction carefully, "switching from surgical to psychiatric medicine." "That's unexpected," I manage, genuinely surprised. Vivian has been pursuing surgical medicine since undergraduate days, focused on following our grandfather's path in cardiothoracic surgery. "It is, isn't it?" She laughs softly. "Can you imagine what Dad would have said about this a year ago? His eldest daughter abandoning law for computer stuff, and his youngest switching from real medicine to talking about feelings." "What prompted this?" I ask, curious about the transformation in my typically status-conscious sister. Vivian looks out at the rain-streaked view, gathering her thoughts. "After your revelation at the wedding, I started questioning a lot of my choices. Not just regarding how I treated you, but my own path. I realized I'd chosen surgery partly because it was prestigious, and partly to please Dad, not because I had passion for it." "And you have passion for psychiatry?" "Surprisingly, yes," she says, her face lighting with an enthusiasm I rarely saw when she discussed her surgical residency. "During my rotation in behavioral health last year, everything clicked. I felt useful, in a way I never did in the operating room. I've been fighting this realization for months, telling myself it was too late to change course, that I'd invested too much time in surgery to switch." "What changed your mind?" "You did," she says simply. "Watching you thrive in the field you chose against family pressure made me realize it's never too late to redirect toward something that feels right. My program director says I can transition with minimal additional time if I start the process. Now." The revelation that my choices influenced her so profoundly touches something deep inside me. For years, I'd believed Vivian saw my divergence from the family plan as weakness or failure. The idea that she viewed it as courage, as inspiration, reshapes my understanding of our shared history. "Have you told Mom and Dad yet?" I ask. She shakes her head. "I wanted to practice on you first. You've had more experience disappointing parental expectations." The joke lands with the newfound ease that's developing between us, allowing humor about dynamics that were once too painful to acknowledge. "Dad might surprise you," I say. He's come a long way since Jason Chen blew my cover. The last time they visited, he actually asked intelligent questions about my work without once mentioning law school applications. "Progress indeed," Vivian agrees. Though I wonder if he's just transferring all his lawyer aspirations to my future children now. "Speaking of which," I venture carefully, "how are things with Eric? I haven't heard you mention him much lately." A shadow crosses her face. "We're adjusting." The psychiatric residency announcement didn't go over well initially. He had certain expectations about being married to a prestigious surgeon, about the social circles we'd move in. A psychiatrist wife wasn't part of the plan. And now? "We're in counseling," she admits. Ironic, isn't it? The future psychiatrist needing therapy to save her marriage. But it's helping. Eric's starting to understand this isn't about him. It's about me finally making choices based on my own values rather than external expectations. The vulnerability in her admission creates space for my own. "I've been seeing someone," I share. "For about 3 months now." Vivian's eyebrows rise with interest. "You never mentioned anyone in our calls." "It's still new," I explain. "And honestly, I'm still getting used to sharing personal details with family. Old habits of compartmentalization. Die hard." "Tell me about him," she encourages, genuinely interested in a way the old Vivian might not have been. "His name is Daniel. He's an environmental engineer. We met at a tech sustainability conference. Brilliant mind, terrible jokes." I smile at the thought of his latest pun-filled text message. He's coming to the promotion celebration dinner tonight. "So it's serious then," Vivian notes. "Meeting the family and all." "He's already met Mom and Dad during their last visit," I confess. "It went surprisingly well. Dad only asked about his long-term financial planning strategies twice, and Mom limited herself to 3 hints about her preference for traditional church weddings." We both laugh, the shared understanding of our parents' predictable behavior, creating a moment of sisterly connection that feels both new and familiar. "Look at us," Vivian says, gesturing between us. "The Reed sisters, finally living authentic lives instead of prescribed ones. Who would have thought?" "Not anyone who attended your wedding," I reply wryly. My phone buzzes with a reminder for the upcoming leadership meeting. Vivian notices and stands, smoothing her skirt. "I should let you prepare for your big announcement. Dinner later. I'd like to meet this terrible joke-telling environmental engineer, i.e. Like that." I agree, surprised by how much I mean it. After she leaves, I return to the window, watching Seattle's persistent rain transform the city into impressionistic smudges of light and color. So much has changed in 6 months. Not just my professional title or Vivian's career direction, but the fundamental way we relate to each other and our shared history. The wedding revelation that I dreaded in the moment has become, in retrospect, a catalyst for authentic connection. The embarrassment I felt when Jason Chen exposed my carefully hidden success has transformed into liberation from the exhausting maintenance of separate identities. My desk phone buzzes again. "The board is assembled in the conference room," my assistant informs me. "Thank you," I reply. "I'll be right there." As I gather my presentation materials, including the new leather portfolio from Vivian, I reflect on the journey that brought me here. From the scared young woman leaving Dartmouth against family wishes to the confident executive about to assume a C-suite position, my path has been neither straight nor easy. Yet every deviation, every challenge, every moment of standing firm in my choices has led to this point of professional fulfillment and personal authenticity. The leadership meeting proceeds smoothly. My promotion announcement met with genuine congratulations from colleagues who have witnessed my contributions firsthand. Jason Chen delivers a glowing introduction highlighting the security innovations that distinguished my team under my direction, the Davidson implementation that exceeded client expectations, and the vision I've outlined for Meridian's security infrastructure moving forward. I knew from the moment I met Olivia Reed that she was destined for this level of leadership, he concludes. And I'm even more convinced after meeting her impressive family at her sister's wedding earlier this year. Excellence clearly runs in the Reed genes. The irony of his statement nearly makes me laugh aloud. If only he knew how far from impressive my family had considered me until his recognition forced them to see me differently. But perhaps that's the point. We all contain multitudes beyond the narrow roles we're assigned by those who think they know us best. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find a group text from my mother. Just heard the wonderful news from Vivian. Congratulations on the promotion, darling. Dad and I are so proud of our CISO daughter. That is the correct acronym, isn't it? The genuine effort to engage with my professional accomplishments touches me, particularly the careful use of industry terminology that would have been dismissed as meaningless jargon a year ago. Another message follows quickly. Vivian also shared her news about changing specialties. Such accomplished daughters we have, forging their own paths. Your father says to tell you he's booked our flights for next month's visit. We're eager to meet Daniel properly this time. No interrogations about financial planning, he promises. Smile at the self-awareness in her message. Our relationship remains a work in progress, but the effort on both sides feels genuine after years of going through the motions of family connection without the substance. Later that evening, I host an intimate dinner at my apartment to celebrate the promotion. Daniel arrives first, bringing champagne and a small plant for my collection of office greenery. His genuine pride in my accomplishment shines through as he helps prepare the space for guests, moving easily through the home we've begun to share, on weekends. Vivian arrives next, her initial assessment of Daniel subtle but unmistakable, the protective sister evaluation I'd never experienced from her before. By the time my parents and a few close friends from work join us, she and Daniel are deep in conversation about sustainable architecture, their animated discussion punctuated by his terrible puns and her surprisingly appreciative laughter. Watching them, I'm struck by how natural this feels. My sister and my partner connecting in my home, my professional and personal worlds finally integrated rather than carefully separated. The effort of maintaining those divisions had drained energy I didn't realize I was expending until it became unnecessary. As we gather around the dining table, my father raises his glass in an impromptu toast. To Olivia, he begins, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken regrets and newfound pride. Whose courage to follow her own path has not only led to extraordinary professional success, but has inspired similar courage in others. His glance toward Vivian communicates volumes about their own evolving relationship. We couldn't be prouder of the woman you've become, even if it took us too long to recognize it. The simple acknowledgement that my choices were valid even when they didn't understand them, that my success is meaningful on its own terms rather than in comparison to traditional markers, represents everything I'd once despaired of receiving from my family. And to connections, Vivian adds, raising her own glass. Not the strategic networking kind. She gives me a meaningful look, reminding me of Eric's post-wedding email, but the genuine ones built on seeing each other clearly, without the distorting lens of expectations or competition. As glasses clink around the table, I feel a completion of the circle that began with that frozen moment at Vivian's wedding reception, when Jason Chen's recognition shattered the family mythology we'd all been maintaining. The public humiliation I feared in that moment has transformed into private liberation, allowing me, allowing all of us to step into more authentic versions of ourselves. Later, after the guests have departed and Daniel has returned to his own apartment with plans to reconnect tomorrow, Vivian lingers to help with the final cleanup. We work in companionable silence until she speaks. "I'm glad Jason Chen recognized you at my wedding," she says, carefully wrapping leftover food. As mortifying as it was in the moment, I think we needed that wake-up call. "All of us," I agree, loading the dishwasher. "I was hiding behind your narrative about me as much as you were creating it. It was easier than risking disappointment. If my success didn't meet expectations, yours or my own," she nods thoughtfully. Fear makes us do strange things, doesn't it? I was so afraid of making the wrong choice that I let others choose for me. You were so afraid of being judged for your choices that you hid their successful outcomes. "And now?" I ask, curious about her perspective on our parallel journeys. "Now we start again," she says simply, "with more honesty, less fear, and hopefully better outcomes for both of us." As she leaves with a genuine hug rather than the air kiss that once characterized our goodbyes, I realize that the most unexpected outcome of Jason Chen's wedding revelation hasn't been my professional advancement or my parents' newfound respect. It's been the authentic reconnection with my sister, the transformation of our relationship from competitive distance to supportive understanding. Some revelations, it seems, are worth the momentary discomfort they create. Some truths need to be spoken aloud or recognized across a crowded reception hall before genuine connection becomes possible. The path forward isn't perfectly clear. Vivian's marriage still faces challenges as she and Eric navigate her career change. My parents continue to occasionally slip into old patterns of expectation and judgment. My own tendency toward compartmentalization requires conscious effort to overcome, but the foundation has shifted from comfortable fictions to uncomfortable truths, and on that more solid ground, we're all building something more authentic than what came before. In the end, it wasn't my sister telling everyone I was broke that defined our relationship. It was what happened afterward, when the CEO recognized me at her wedding, when the carefully maintained family mythology collapsed, when we were all forced to see each other as we truly are, rather than as we'd pretended to be. Sometimes, it takes a public revelation to enable private transformation. Sometimes, it takes being truly seen by a stranger to finally be recognized by those who should have known you all along. And sometimes, what initially feels like humiliation becomes the catalyst for liberation you never knew you needed. If you enjoyed this story of family dynamics, unexpected revelations, and personal growth, please subscribe to our channel for more inspirational content that explores the complex relationships that shape our lives. Each week, we share stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles to be seen, understood, and accepted for who we truly are. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community of storytellers and listeners navigating the beautiful mess of human connection together.